Hello, and welcome to Reimagining Life, Society and Business through Technological Bursts of Possibility. I'm sure, like me, you're fascinated by the potential impact of technology, and that's what I'd like to talk about today. So I'm going to do three things. I'm going to set a little bit of context about the nature of exponential technology development. Secondly, I want to get into exploring some of the technologies and how they might be deployed and some of the implications across life, society and business. Then finally, I want to draw a very brief conclusion and just reflect on how we might engage easily with futures content. And to help you do that, I'll make some recommendations about some sources of information. So first of all, let's start to think about the technological landscape that we see right now. Because one of the things that's really different from the past is, I believe, the nature of the technologies, the exponential technology development we're seeing. And just a few examples include 3D printing, 4D printing, where the materials printed can change their properties, robots and drones, human augmentation, synthetic biology, blockchain, quantum computing, immersive technologies like virtual and augmented reality, and automatically precise manufacturing and nanotechnology. But one of the core technologies that draws all these things together is artificial intelligence. And that's where I'd like to start. Right now we see examples of what we think of as narrow artificial intelligence, broadly breaking down into these three categorizations. So first of all, looking at an expert role, looking at rule-based systems. And very often we see these are the kind of automated processes that a machine can do more effectively, quicker, more accurately than a human. The second category is associated with chatbots and robo-advisors. So here what we're talking about is context awareness. So maybe we can talk to a robo-advisor, and based on an understanding of our language, different types of intervention are made and different types of responses are given to us. The third area is human-level domain specific expertise. And here we're talking about artificial intelligence applications that can operate far better at a far deeper level than humans, but in a very narrow domain. So IBM Watson is really good at diagnosing cancers based on looking at the data. Through machine learning, AlphaGo Zero is really good at playing the game Go. But if you ask AlphaGo Zero to diagnose cancer, it won't be able to. And if you ask IBM Watson to play the game Go, it won't be able to, because the machine learning hasn't been applied in that way. It's been applied at a very specific level. The learning rules that have been applied are just the learning rules for one particular outcome. Of course, the holy grail for artificial intelligence may be to develop applications that can do all three of those. But we're a long way from that right now. So what's much closer? Well, let's think just for a moment about autonomous vehicles. If we focus initially on autonomous cars, and we imagine a car that may be managed by an AI system, one of the powers of technology is the ability to join them together. So let's think of an AI-enabled autonomous car where it's sat as an asset on a blockchain. It's managed financially through the blockchain. So it's effectively self-owning. That in itself allows us to think about new business concepts. So an autonomous car listed on the blockchain can effectively be self-owning. Given the risks involved, it can be self-insuring. Not only that, it may be 3D printed from materials that can repair themselves. For those elements of the autonomous car that can't repair themselves, it will analyze its usage, component wear and tear, and proactively log the car in for maintenance. So the idea that we can bring some of these technologies together to create a very different business idea, a new business concept, you begin to see the potential and the possibilities. But it's not just those more complex areas where we might see artificial intelligence and robotics playing a role. Imagine checking in at a hotel. We might be presented with different options at the check-in desk. Maybe we'd be checked in by a robot, maybe by some kind of humanoid looking robot, or maybe by a robot that's designed to look like a velociraptor. That simple exercise of checking into a hotel that's relatively mundane all of a sudden becomes very different. Now, the interesting thing about this example is it exists at the moment as a check-in service at a Japanese resort. So some of these technologies that maybe feel a way into the future are actually with us right now. Let's think about immersive technology. So I spoke very briefly early on about augmented reality and virtual reality. And we actually see those technologies really driving the experience age. So imagine if before we went on holiday, we were able to use immersive technologies to feel the quality of the linen from a hotel in the Far East, even smell the fragrances in the bathroom, potentially even taste the food. Through more mundane applications, we can use augmented reality to help us maintain complex machines. Already we're seeing the deployment of augmented reality in aircraft maintenance, for example. But imagine if we don't even need to step onto a plane to experience something exotic, like the wind from the savannah, the roar of the lion, the smell of the savannah. Maybe we can do that through an experience centre in the high street, and we never need to go abroad. We're often told about the potential impact of devices connected to the Internet of Things. And there are lots of different projections about how many sensors, how many devices, and their economic impact. But the interesting thing is just the plethora of different applications. So there's a real example of how one mattress manufacturer is putting devices into the mattress. The idea is that through an application on your mobile device, you'll be able to get some kind of feedback about the way that you sleep. And that feedback may help you get a more comfortable night's sleep. But it has other applications. And it's particularly marketed on its ability to tell you whether your mattress is being used when you're not at home via your mobile device. I'll just let that thought sit with you for a second. I've mentioned 3D printing. And 3D printing really has the ability not just to change manufacturing and the production of specific assets, but also on related sectors as well. So let's take the example of local motors. On the left hand side is the Strati, which was a prototype 3D printed car. On the right hand side is a production model. Now these 3D printed cars can be made from 50 to 75 components. They're electrically powered and they can produce 2,500 cars in a microfactory that returns a profit. A conventional car manufacturer will be looking for 50, 75,000 cars. So immediately you get a sense that producing something from 50 to 75 components compared to 5, 10,000 components that we might see in a conventional car creates a very different manufacturing process. But then we need to look at some of the other impacts as well. Because all of a sudden we don't need the complex component supply chain that you imagine we do need for traditional motor manufacture. Not only that, if we can create a network of plants producing cars at the regional level, we no longer need the logistics and the supply chain in order to distribute cars. When we bring some of these technologies together, particularly artificial intelligence, immersive technologies, holographic representation, holographic projection, enhanced humans, we begin to see the potential for a world of multiple actors. So we'll be interacting with normal people. I'm sure most of the people listening to this are normal. but also enhanced people with robots, with robotic artificial intelligent drones, with artificially intelligent machines, with people that are enhanced through nootropic substance use or even through implants. So all of a sudden, the way that we interact in a work or leisure setting begins to change. What if I'm looking for a job and an artificially intelligent robot is going for the same job? What if I'm a manager and one of the people working for me is actually an artificially intelligent robot? Or what if my boss is a robot? So we begin to see how some of these technologies can radically change our world in the future. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that the technology landscape is changing really rapidly and that there could be some very radical outcomes in the future. So we've spoken about artificial intelligence. We've spoken about robots in the context of digital concierges. We've spoken about immersive technologies, the Internet of Things, 3D printing, and multiple actors. So maybe you want to know more. Maybe you want to see and gain a sense of how technologies are starting to emerge. So I can recommend some resources for you. So you can look at our website, www.informingchoices.com, and we have a series of articles and videos that talk about some of these developments and their implications. But you can also look at a number of resources on Twitter, for example. And the four I'd recommend are Mashable, Digital Trends, Futurism, and the World Economic Forum. I'd like to leave you with this question. How will you use new technology to enhance your life or business? And which technology might make the most impactful difference to you? Thanks for listening.